So, welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on best practices for service management. Joining me today is Nikhil Deshpande, our Principal Product Manager, Samit Kulkarni, our Technical Support Analyst, and Kashita Muff, Product Developer. They will do their formal introductions later. So before we get started and I hand over to Nikhil, a couple of reminders for those that haven't used Zoom before. There is the Q&A section of Zoom, which you will find at the bottom. If you have any questions during this demo and presentation, please put your questions in there. We will, as a team, try to answer them during the presentation, and then we will have roughly 15 to 20 minutes at the end where we will take some of those questions to the live Q&A. Until that time, you will remain muted, but please do use the Q&A section if you do have any questions. So Nikhil, I'm now going to hand over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Sam, and good morning, good afternoon to our participants from wherever you're joining this session. I'm Nikhil Deshpande. I am a product manager for BMC Helix Dashboards, and I'm excited to be back here in front of you to share with you some of the best practices of using BMC Helix Dashboards for developing reports and dashboards for the BMC Helix service management products such as ITSM, digital workplace, business workflows, and so on. We started this journey of enabling our customers with Helix dashboards a few years back, and we have realized that the initial resistance to adopt Helix dashboards has given away. In the past 1 year, we have seen many customers, a vast majority of our customers transition over from smart reporting to Helix dashboards. And during this journey, what we have seen, especially over the past 1 year, is that although customers are adopting Helix dashboards in large numbers, they do need help in terms of sharing with them some of the best practices of using Helix dashboards. And this is necessary for them to be able to get value out of Helix dashboards, which is why, based on our experience of working with many of you and several other customers, we have come up with this webinar series called Best Practices for Service Management. This is a multi-part series. And in this series of webinars, we are going to focus on some of the best practices of Helix dashboards. Certainly, things like how do you design dashboards that are performant? Performance is key, and neither you nor your users want to be stuck with dashboards that are slow to perform. So reaching out to support, having BMC respond to those, it's not a great experience, I'm sure. And while BMC is committed to help you address these issues, there's a lot you can do to help yourself and your customers. So what are those things? How do you design dashboards optimally so that there's a minimal need to reach out for BMC for help? What are the best practices of developing dashboards? So as a dashboard developer, what can you do? What features and capabilities of Helix dashboards can you follow for optimal performance? How can you write efficient SQL queries? Ultimately, a large part of performance is dependent on how the query runs on the database. What can you do to write efficient SQL queries that are not a burden on the database and that don't negatively impact performance? How do you optimize database performance? Now, not every report developer needs to be familiar with this, but certainly your report admins, your dashboard admins need to be familiar with what they need to do to optimize database performance. So we'll cover all of these and many more in this webinar series. This is a two-part series. You're watching the first part of this series. This session is called Best Practices of Developing Dashboards. We will be repeating the same session for Americas and EMEA as well. But this is the first session. The second session is exactly 2 weeks from today. So if you haven't registered for the second session, you can register here, the session on February 25th. And then we'll be repeating these webinars for Americas and EMEA as well in a time zone that's at a time that's friendlier for those time zones. So here's the agenda for today's webinar. We'll look at what are the steps you need to follow for optimal dashboard development? What features and capabilities of dashboards can you use for developing dashboards? You have variables in your dashboards, the filters that your users will click to pass as parameters to your dashboard. There's a lot you can do to efficiently design those variables. So what are those practices? We'll look at that. What are the overall features of optimizing the efficiency of your dashboards? And finally, what process do you follow to build, test, and iterate? We'll look at all of these aspects of dashboard development in this session. Without much further ado, I'll now hand off to our next panelist. Sumit Kulkarni is going to speak. He is a technical support analyst in BMC support. He has tremendous experience in supporting our customers on Helix dashboards. So he'll walk us through the first part of this session, and then we'll hand off to Kshitija, who's a developer on the Helix dashboards R&D team. So over to you, Sumit.
Hey, thank you, Nikhil. Welcome and very good day to all of you. I am Sumit Kulkarni, one of the senior technical support analyst here at BMC. So I'm with BMC for over 6 years now, based out of India. So let me quickly share my screen. Let me know once you are able to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so I will now walk you through the efficient process of dashboard development, covering the key steps to ensure your dashboard are efficient and user friendly. So we all know how critical it is to optimize the performance of the dashboard for quick data retrieval and seamless user experience. So let's begin with the first step, which is planning. So in this step, so before we start with the dashboard development, it is necessary to define the objective of the dashboard and choose the key metrics which is relevant to the use case. The next approach is effective variable design. So this is about designing the well-structured variable before we start writing our queries. So it is necessary to design the variables. So that will prevent unnecessary data retrieval before we write the queries. So next approach is writing the optimal queries. So in this stage, we are going to talk about the best practices to write the optimized panel queries and reduce the query execution time. However, this is a separate topic that requires ample time for detailed discussion. So it will be covered in part 2 of this webinar series. In the next step, we are going to talk about the optimizing the dashboard efficiency. So here we are going to discuss the key approaches about how to use the dashboard features to reduce the initial load time of the dashboard and improve the overall dashboard performance. And in the final stage, which is test and iterate, it is necessary to test the data accuracy and validate the dashboard performance with admin and non-admin users. So let's move on to the details about these steps now. Okay, so we are going to start with the planning for optimal dashboard development. So in this area, we are focusing on the three core principles. The first is define the clear objectives. So we need to begin with the clear understanding and the purpose of the dashboard by keeping the dashboard for a specific module and the use case. So then identify the audience and tailor the dashboard to their specific needs by adding the required conditions. The next stage is prioritize the essential metrics. So we need to focus on the important KPIs that are most relevant to the use case. So avoiding unnecessary visualizations or data that dilute the primary focus. So we can use the variables and drill through capabilities to showcase the details in another dashboard without cluttering the main view. And the final approach is leverage the appropriate visuals. So we need to choose the visualizations that best represents the data and focus on simplifying the visual complexity to avoid overloading the dashboard with excessive charts. So once we are done with these steps or planning, we need to first create the variables. So let's talk about the best practices of effective variable design. So in this stage, the first step is choosing the appropriate variable type. So when designing the variables, we can use the custom variable type for the columns which has static values. So like status, priority, or impact, which are the enum fields. So this optimizes the performance by reducing the initial query execution time. So instead of using the query as a variable type, we are going to use the custom variable type here. Then we can also use the text box when we want to perform a searches based on the given input, as this would work as a search filter in the dashboard. So upon opening the dashboard, the variable would initially be blank. However, users can then enter the text into it and perform the searches based on the input provided. We can also leverage the date range variable type when multiple date filters needs to be incorporated into the dashboard. That would enhance the data filtering and flexibility. And finally, we can use this query variable type for dynamic columns such as assigned groups, company, or organizations, where values may be added or modified over the period of time. So when we need to use this query as a variable type, what are the best practices to utilize or create the variable with the help of query variable type? So when using the query variable type, use the virtual query builder to create the variables. So instead of writing the queries manually, we can use the virtual query builder to create the variables, as this simplifies or help in creating the dynamic variables and eliminating the need to memorize the complex variable syntax. So it also helps to effortlessly add the conditions into it, so resulting in more efficient and user-friendly variable design. So since we are talking about adding the conditions into the variable, how we can avoid using the variables with extensive data sets. So we can avoid this extensive data set by adding the conditions. So the variable ensures that only relevant variable values are presented. So for enhancing the performance and the user experience, it is important to avoid fetching extensive values in the variable dropdown. So conditions can be easily defined or added with the help of virtual query builder, as this minimizes the dashboard initial load time. So I'll now move on to the next approach, which is adding the GUID code in the custom all values. So we used to choose the include all options whenever we want to have all the values in the variables. So adding a GUID in the custom all values or selecting the exclude variable option, which will be available after enabling some feature flags. So this functions as an excluding the filter from the panel query. So it helps in reducing the query complexity, and it also allows the inclusion of null values for more accurate representation. So adding this GUI code or selecting the exclude variable option is going to help to exclude the filter from the panel query. So that is where we are reducing the query complexity. The next approach is enabling the time range change refresh option. So this option optimizes the dashboard performance by reducing the initial load time, as the variable queries are deferred and only get executed or refreshed when we change the time range from the dashboard. So we have two options here, on dashboard load and on time range change. So instead of keeping this on a dashboard load, we can keep this on a on time range change, as this will help to improve the initial load time of the dashboard. And the values are going to update, or the queries are going to run only when when we change the time range. Let's move on to the next approach, which is limit the number of variables used. So we can optimize the dashboard performance by keeping the number of variables minimal, as it reduces the multiple query execution during the dashboard load and decreases the processing overload for improved efficiency. So instead of adding the multiple variables, we can keep those minimal, which is relevant to the use case. So this is the next approach, which is assigning the default values to the variable. This is very important, as this enhances the user experience and the initial load time again of the dashboard for defining the variable with predefined or default values. So while saving the dashboard, you can choose to save the variable values as a default, as it faster the load times and improve the responsiveness of the dashboard. Okay, so let's move on to the demo part now. So in this demo, I'll present how to apply these best practices for creating the effective variables. So let me quickly share the dashboard screen here. Okay, so here I have an open problem analysis dashboard. You can see the appropriate variable types are used according to the column values. So the company, assigned group, and the coordinators, which has the dynamic values. So these three variables are using a query variable type, which is created with the help of virtual query builder. The assigned group and the coordinator is having a dependent variables. So whenever the company value gets updated, based on that, the assigned group and the coordinator values are going to update. So I'll quickly show you how this works. So whenever I choose a specific company from the drop down, the assigned group and the coordinator group is going to reflect. Then we have impact and the status, which is enum values, or it has the static values. So we have used a custom variable type here. So values are defined with the comma separated instead of writing the queries. Then we have a date range variable type, which is used for last modified date with the default filter set to last 2 years. Similarly, we have also set a default filter for the company, which is Apex Global. And finally, we have the description, which is used as a text box variable type. So users can input the value here and filter the data based on the value provided. So if I want to search with problems with access in the description, so I can quickly search the problems where the description contains access. This is how the text variable type works. So let's see how these variables are designed. So I'll quickly go to the variable sections now. Now you will see company, assigned group, and the coordinator groups are designed with the help of queries. And we have used, instead of writing these queries manually, we have used the virtual query builder option. So you can choose the type as virtual query builder and just drag and drop the required columns into the fields. And along with that, we can add the conditions to avoid using variables with extensive data sets. So I have used the submit date as a condition here. So the company values are going to showcased based on the filters, which is default set in the dashboard. So I'll use this query. So you can see the query is automatically generated along with the conditions that we have applied. The next best practice that we have talked about is selecting the refresh option as on time range change. So this is where we are reducing the initial load time. Now variable queries only get executed or refreshed when we change the time range from the dashboard. So along with that, we have used the include all option. That is where we have a flexibility to use this GUID code. So this excludes the filter from the panel query. Now it also helps in reducing the query complexity. So we can use this particular code or exclude all option, which will be available once we enable the feature flag. So now assign group and the coordinator groups is having one more extra condition, which is company. This is where we are using the dependent filter mechanism. So whenever the company value is selected, assign groups values are populated based on the specific company selected. So along with submit date, we have used the company, and in the values we have defined the company as a variable. So the values are going to reflect based on the submit date and the company selected from the dashboard or the variable dropdown. Similarly, we have the time range change option used for a refresh option and the GUID code used in the custom all values. Now the impact and status, these are the two static value fields, and we have used a custom variable type instead of using the query variable type. So we are minimizing the query runtime here because there is no query used. So the values are comma separated. And instead of whenever we open the dashboard, instead of variables are going to execute, it is not. It is just going to run this particular variables. So instead of running the queries, we are just defining this here in the custom all values. And this last modified date is you having a default value which is set to last 2 years, and it is based out of date range variable type. And the description is using a text box where the default value is set to access, or you can choose to set this as blank. So let's now talk about how this really helps to adding this GUID code. So currently, I'll just remove the GUID code from this query and just quickly run the query and apply here. And now let's see how the query looks like when we remove the GUID code from the panel or the variable. So you can see that the assign group has all the values which are populated in the variables. So this basically becomes the query more complex because all the values, if we have more than 900 values or 1000 values, then all of them are going to incorporate into the query. So to avoid this, we are simplifying the query by adding the GUID code in the variable. This can be added in the custom all values. There is an alternative available, as I said. We can also enable the feature flag and select the exclude all option instead of writing or providing the GUID code here. So now I'll quickly show you how the query looks like once we have added the GUID code in the query. So you'll see that. So the assign group instead of showing all the values, we have added this GUID code. So this basically reduce the query complexity and improve the overall performance of the dashboard. So this is all about how we can design the effective variables. I will now hand it over to Kshitija. She will talk about the key approaches for optimizing the dashboard efficiency. Over to you, Kshitija.
Thank you, Sumit. Myself, Kshitija Marathi. I'm part of Helix Dashboards R&D team, and I'll be talking about the key approaches um, for optimizing dashboard efficiency. Sumit, can you please confirm if the screen is visible?
Not as of now. Yes, I can see your screen now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when we think about how to optimize dashboard efficiency, then um, we need to consider certain aspects, like when we design the dashboard. At that time, we think about what is the objective of dashboard, wh- who all are the user personas who will be using the dashboard, and based on that, we um, we design simple, clear, and clean layouts so that um, there will not be any confusion whenever the user visualizes it. So if you can see on the screen, um, we have a simple incident dashboard where uh, on the top we have three filters, and then the topmost row of the panels, it should be having the summarized view of the panels. So uh, typically stat panels or key KPIs which you want to capture in the dashboard, and that should be the first top row should have that all those key KPIs covered. Then if you go down, then you can have the time series or trend charts, so that at first glance when user try to visualize it over a certain period of time, he will get the idea at first glance, looking at the trend chart. And later on, you can have bar chart, pie chart, if you want to group the data based on certain metrics. And uh, then on the main dashboard, if we look at, um, you need not have to have a detailed data visible. Like the tabular data should be visible whenever you drill down to the next level. So typically, let's have a summarized view of panels on main dashboard. And if you want to look at the detailed data, then use drill through data links and have the data points captured on the main dashboard. And those data points will be clickable, and you will be able to go to the next level and view the uh, detailed data. So let me move to the next slide, which is about, so this is again one of the most suitable approach. We should think about using it whenever we want to have the reusability into consideration. So uh, we have a capability in Helix Dashboard to um, use a dashboard as a data source. So let's say I have created one dashboard, and it includes all the incident details. It has one tabular data, one panel with incident details in tabular format. So now, and it has all the fields which are relevant for incident management included in this incident details table. And now I want to build some more panels, including the similar kind of fields. Like if you look at the IT service management example, incident management module, then incident number, priority, company, organization, submitter. These are very common fields which we need to plot, um, let's say, pie chart, which is incidents based on priority. Then if you want to count incidents based on status, then uh, those key fields are always required whenever designing these panels. So just to optimize the dashboard's efficiency, what we can do, we can design this a single panel, and this panel the result set of this panel, we can use it as a source for the other panels. So what will happen with that is, if say for example you create 6 to 7 panels using this panel as a data source, then at runtime, if you look at the network traffic, then there will be only one call to fetch the data from actual database. So you are avoiding um, other 6 to 7 calls, which are um, which are affecting your dashboard efficiency, right? So you will avoid this extra calls if you use this dashboard panel as a data source. So I'll cover this in more detail when I'll um, have actual demo of this. Then let's go to the next, which is about setting the default time range for the dashboard. So when we look at um, the dashboard design, on the right top corner, we always see time picker, where we can have some default value set based on the need, like last 30 days or last month, 1 month. Or we can set the relative uh, time periods as well. So there are absolute or relative time ranges available to be set on the time picker. And it helps to view the filtered data instead of viewing the entire transactional data. If you look at the IT service management data, then we have a huge transactional data which is getting added on daily basis. And so to get a filtered data, you need this time picker, and you can set a default value as well, and you can um, change it on runtime and pass that time range to the all panels in the dashboard. Then let's move on to the next, which is using library panels. So when we say library panel, it's a group of or set of panels. So again, this feature is meant for reusability. So um, again, I'll go with same example, which is incident details, or let's say count of incident. So if you have a requirement to design a panel for count of incidents based on status, or count of incident based on priority, but that count of incident is um, a common logic which you need always. So if you design a library panel for that, then the query can be, or the panel can be reused, and you can change your filter criteria based on the dashboard's need. So you can use the same panel across different dashboards, and you can set different criteria. So we'll look at it in more detail when uh, we will look at demo. Then uh, using calculated fields, again, when we say I want to calculate certain, so suppose I want to calculate incident's age. So uh, I will write some formula for the same. So, and I want to use that in multiple places. Then it's better to write once as a calculated field and use it across the dashboards. So we have different ways to create calculated fields, and we will look at it in more detail. Let's go to the next, which is configure dashboards row. So if we look at this screenshot, then you can see you can add a row in the dashboard. So if I want to divide a dashboard into two sections or two parts, then you can use this uh, row concept. And also this row can be used when you want to repeatedly show one panel based on certain conditions. So for example, on the top I have filter, um, company filter, and I want to show count of incidents for Petramco or for ABC company. Then I want to show count of incidents for XYZ company. So I want to repeat the same panel, but it should show data for different companies. Then this row option is very useful. Then let me start with the actual demo to get more idea about how to optimize the dashboard efficiency. So yeah, so I have created this incident summary dashboard as an example. And if you can see here, we have last 30 days of time picker, which is selected by default. And you will see we can apply the time range, relative or absolute time ranges also can be applied. Then we have filters or variable section here, which help us to view the data based on certain criteria, which Sumit has already covered. And then on the top, if you see, I have stat panels, which are showing the key KPIs, which at first glance, whenever the dashboard gets loaded, I will see how many are open incidents, how many are overdue. So, and what's the average age, incidents age in days. So when I look at it at first glance, I can see all these details. Then next will be the incident trend based on the priority or the statuses. And next I have some crosstab reports, which helps us to visualize data grouped based on certain metrics. Like if I want to see count of incidents based on priority and status, then I can look at it through this crosstab visualization. So, as I already mentioned, we have to avoid having all the detailed data on main dashboard. So instead of detailed data to be available as a tabular panel here, we can configure a data link, drill through link, and we can see uh, the more detailed data for particular uh, incidents or matching incidents on the uh, detailed drill through panel. And further, we can have cross launch as well to view actual incident in Smart IT. If we look at this particular example, uh, yeah. And then let's move on to the next approach, which we talked about. It is about using a panel as a data source. So how to do that? So I have this incident details panel with me. And if I want to use this as a data source, then what I'll do, I will create new visualization. And here in data source, I'll choose dashboard. And here I'll choose incident details. Now, if you will see, all the data appears from that particular panel. Now I want to just look at count of incidents maybe. So I will say stat panel, and I will choose here distinct count. And again in fields, I'll choose incident number. And here is the stat panel ready, which is using the data source or the result set from this incident details panel. And if we look at the network traffic for this particular, if I will save this and I'll refresh this, so even if it is having 4 panels, but you will see there is only one API call to fetch the data, which is for incident details panel. So we are avoiding the extra calls, and that's the reason dashboard load time is reduced, because it is just getting the data for one of the panel only and using it for using the same data for the rest of the panels. So that's the beauty of this feature, which is using panel as a data source. Then next feature which we talked about, or the approach which we talked about, is using the panel as a library panel. So how to do that? So let's say, for example, I want to use this as a library panel. Then from here, I get option to create library panel. And it asks me the title for the same. And the library panel is created. Now, if I say add new panel, then I get option here that import from library. So when I say import from library, this test panel started appearing. And it can be reused. And I can make certain changes. So in case I want to have some other filters or where condition need to be changed, and I want to look at the count of incidents with priority high, then I will change the that particular criteria only. But I'll be able to reuse the query, which is the base query. I'll be able to reuse. And also you get option to unlink library panel. So what happens when we use library panel, it gets linked. So panel A and panel B, they both are linked together when they are being used 2 times. But if you don't want it to be linked, then you can unlink that library panel, so that once you have created it using the library panel and you don't want it to be linked, like when you change the query in panel B, then panel A should not be affected. So like this, if you want to happen, then you can use this unlink library panel, so that it will act as 2 individual panels. But already you have made use of panel A and you have created panel B. So reusability is still achieved. And yeah, so let's discuss about the calculated fields approach. So So from here, you can create new calculated field. And like this, there will be a set of calculated fields you can create based on your need. And how to use those calculated fields. So there are certain ways to create calculated fields and use it. So when we look at um, query type service management, then we get these three types. So in form type, when I choose particular form which is related to incident management right now, then when I enable calculated field, I see list of all the calculated fields under incident management module. And I can just use that. And actually, I have to select incident number and okay. So I can choose that and it will uh, be able to use that calculated field. But in case you don't want to use this type and you want to go ahead with direct SQL, then you can, you can use direct SQL option and you can use the same formula which you have created in the calculated fields UI and copy that into your direct SQL. And the third one, which is Visual Query Builder. This uses a metadata layer. If we look at incident management metadata view, here we have certain calculated fields added. And these calculated fields are created using the reporting metadata studio. And once they are created, it can be consumed here by just dragging and dropping. So why to use calculated fields? So in some scenarios, let me tell you some scenarios, like if we have any enum field in ITSM, like for example, status, priority, are enum fields which are applicable in almost every module in IT service management. And if you look at um, when we use this enum value and we come across um, the performance issues, then what I'll suggest is to use case when statement here and use these enum fields from the calculated fields, like case when status equal to 1,000, then consider it as new, etc. Like this, we can create a formula and use it. So you will see the definitely you will see the improvement in performance. So for this, the calculated fields are very much useful. And if you want to use Visual Query Builder, then we have a way to create calculated fields at view level, and it can be consumed here. Then if we look at the next part, which is how to configure the rows. So here I have a good example through which we can view the data of all the types of IT service management tickets and service requests. So it summarizes the data for all the types of tickets in IT service management. And here again, if you look at, I have used this concept of row so that there will be different sections based on the which module for which I want to view the data. So first module is incident management. Then next is change management. Like that, uh, all the IT service management modules have different sections. And I have just kept first top section expanded. So this is also a good approach uh, to look at when we want to reduce the load time of dashboard. So what happens when we have rows created, and if you have multiple rows created, and if you keep all the sections or rows expanded, then your dashboard load time is going to get increased, because the number of panels are per row we have three panels, and to load that much of data, the load time it takes is more. So let's have first row expanded, and other rows, if you keep it collapsed, then definitely you will see the load time is reduced, because whatever is expanded, only though these three panels right now, it will go and get fetch the data for those panels. And whenever you will expand this second, then it will fetch the data for these second row. Likewise, it can do, but it will be a lazy loading feel which you will get with this. So this is one of the good approach you can go for. And the next use of rows is, if you go here in the settings, you will see repeat for. So it shows the list of filters or variables. So when I say repeat for company and update, the panels will be repeated. So the rows will be repeated, and it will show the data based on the different companies. So I have 4 different companies right now, and it will um, be repeated 4 times. And if I say, I'll just disable repeating, but if I want to refer variable here directly, then I can say incidents for dollar company. So you are referring a variable here. So let's say I will choose this company, and here uh, the value of this variable gets replaced, and you will see incident for Petramco, etc. And if you um, enable the repeat option as well along with this, then you will see the heading uh, appears with the company value at runtime. So this is also a good use of rows. And if we compare it with smart reporting, which is the older tool for reporting, and there we have a way to co-display the reports. So uh, to some extent, Helix Dashboard is able to achieve the co-display with the help of the concept of rows. And from here, we can add a row just for the information. Um, so that's about the rows. So once you're done with following all these approaches which are suitable for your need, then it's time to just test what you have so far designed in the dashboard. And So test and iterate is a very much needed step here whenever it comes to designing of the dashboards. Um, Whenever you're testing, check for the data accuracy. So whatever, if you have certain calculations, count or aggregation applied, then is it working the uh, based on your need? If it is really calculating it correctly or not, that you have to uh, check for the data accuracy. And when I uh, specifically talk about IT service management, then um, you can check the count of records uh, uh, in actual smart IT or ITSM UI, and check the number of records here in Helix dashboard using the same criteria and compare for the data accuracy. Then you can go for user testing and review. So when it comes to user testing, again, whenever we look at IT service management, then we have admin and non-admin users, which which are going to you both are going to use the dashboard which you have designed. Then in that case, it is very much needed to test it with non-admin user as well, because if you compare the load time of the dashboard between admin user and non-admin user, then you will see certain delay in non-admin user, but still um, it the comparison between admin and non-admin load time should not have a huge difference. But when it comes to non-admin user, then row level security also gets added uh, in the actual query which gets executed at database layer. So that uh, delay gets added for non-admin, but still there are the approaches and uh, there are certain ways to um, tune the queries, or like Sumit already covered about how to use the variable types efficiently. So we can
Hey,
use
Kshitija,
certain ways.
I need
And
to interrupt
yeah,
you. We are
yeah,
at time.
yeah,
We are at
I'm
time.
done.
If you're finished, let's come
Yeah,
to the summary and the references.
yeah, sure.
Participants, we just need another 5 minutes to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes. Uh, I'm at the end of presentation. So today we have already covered the summary. Just to summarize about what we have covered as a part one, is how to uh, have a structured process of efficient dashboard design, and how to plan your objectives and key metrics, and how to use variables effectively, and how to optimize um, the dashboard efficiency by using the approaches which we just discussed. And the last part which we just talked about, which is test and iterate to get a better results. So with that, we are done with part one of the best practices. And here are some references uh, which will be shared with you people, and you can go through these documentation links. Uh, with that, thanks all, and we can start with a Q&A session. So with that, I'll hand over to Nikhil and Sam.
Thank you, Kshitija and Sumit, for covering the content so well. We are almost towards the end. We have responded to your questions online. If anyone wants to ask a question, we can unmute you. You may raise your hand and we can unmute you if you want to ask a question.
I can see we have got one question in the Q&A and I've just unmuted everyone. So George was asking a question, could you please provide the BMC dashboard link to to understand the features in ETC? So I don't know if it's one link or whether or not, Nikhil, it
Yes.
will be covered in the ones that we've got already in the presentation.
No, it wasn't covered in the presentation, but I'll
Okay.
respond to that question. We will share a link.
Okay. George, hopefully that answers your question. Again, feel free to come off mute if you've got anything else, but we will be sharing that out post-event. That was actually also another question that was asked earlier. Everything that we share today, including the recording, the slides, any Q&A that comes in between the two sessions this week, I will merge the two Q&As together so you've got that as well, because it might be useful from the EMEA US session, some of the questions that come up. I will try to get this out in the next 24 to 48 hours, and then I will point a link to everyone on where the content will be put for the EMEA session as well. Okay. Nabil has asked a question, how can we troubleshoot timeout errors? Nabil, feel free to come off mute. I don't know who wants to take that question. Maybe Samit.
Yeah, let me take that one. So we can troubleshoot these timeout errors based on the query that we have written in the panel. So we are going to anyway cover this in a second part of this webinar series. So there are some best practices that we need to apply in order to overcome these timeout errors. So this can be troubleshoot based on the logic that we have used in the query. So it is completely based on what is the logic of the query. So we need to just make sure that the query is not going to timeout, or it should not take more than 10 minutes, which is the defined timeout limit for the query. So the dashboard or the panel query needs to be defined in a such a way that it should not get timed out. And for that, we have to just follow some best practices. So we'll definitely cover this in a part 2 of this webinar series.
Great, thanks, Samit. Okay, we have a question, another one that's come through from Rob. Is there any best practice guides for controlling and managing folder structure and access to dashboards?
I can take this one. We recommend reducing the number of folders to a minimum. Typically, you will see we have created at least one folder for every BMC product. We would recommend you use the same folders for your custom dashboards as well. The more folders you have, the more administrative overhead you have in managing access and so on.
Thanks for that. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Hopefully you can. That was my question. Our issue is that we actually have a very large number of teams using Helix and creating and managing their own dashboards. We have a significant number with edit and admin. Sorry, not with admin, but with edit. Is there any way to tie folders directly to almost the support groups within ITSM? Or is it just because right now they don't seem in any way really linked?
No, they are not.
Because that's kind of that's kind of where we're at the moment in terms of being able to have you're in a support group. When you create a dashboard, the dashboards go in for your support group unless you set them otherwise. Cross-tab version, and again, probably doesn't scale out for us, unfortunately. So, I mean, right now I've just been largely kind of creating folders in lines with the support groups on a case-by-case basis. But you can quickly imagine if you've got a lot of people with edit and the ability to create dashboards, the general folder fills up very quickly.
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be a feature request, I guess, at some point or something to that effect. But yeah, cheers for that.
Thank you. Can we unmute Carlo?
Yes. Carlo, if you want to mute yourself, can you hear us?
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, right, cool. I just noticed in the PowerPoint slide, it says there version 25.1. Is that coming soon or
Yeah, we usually don't talk about the schedule of releases here, but uh, that's usually a schedule that's published. You'll need to reach out to your account team at BMC to find out when you will receive the update.
Cool, no worries.
Sure,
Do you,
thank you.
Carlo, do you have a customer success manager or a CSS that you can reach out to?
I don't believe so, but I could ask. But yeah, I just noticed in the PowerPoint slide, it's at the end. It says there, version 25.1. So
Yeah,
maybe
if
it's coming
because
soon. But yeah,
well, if
Yeah.
it is SaaS, what they basically do, everything is scheduled like what Nikhil said. We can't obviously upgrade everyone all in one go, so they get scheduled on releases. If you don't know, then obviously you're more than welcome to reach out. I can have a look to see if there is anyone assigned to your account. But if you want to check first, we can certainly let you know because normally they'll give a schedule of how many months away it may be.
not ours. All good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, there isn't any other questions that I can see at the moment. The only ones I did see, David was asking about the recording in the chat. We don't have any further questions in the Q&A. If anyone else has further, if you want to raise your hand or put something into the Q&A. Hi, David.
Hi, I did see someone else ask this in the chat and I had the same question. I don't think anyone has answered it yet, which is for the GUID or that string that was used in the example in the first half of the presentation, where does that string come from if you're using that for the all values solution that helps to reduce the load on the queries?
Sumit, I guess this is a question for you.
Yeah, let me take that. Yes. So it is a fixed GUID code, David. So we can use that particular GUID code in the custom all value. So it is fixed for all the variables. You can utilize this for all the variables or the dashboards that you have. So I have already pasted this in the chart window, that particular code. So yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Okay, anything further, David?
No, that's it.
Thank you. We have another question from Nabil. I can see that's been answered by Kashita. Do you want to take that question from Nabil?
Yeah. So whenever it comes to the number of records that can be extracted, we have a JDBC row limit, which can be set at the Helix platform side. And based on that limit, that many number of records can be extracted. And if you have a large set of records, like you mentioned, then it can be extracted in chunks. So we have a chunk size as well, which can be defined at the platform side. And based on that, it will be getting displayed in chunks. I can share the link for more details, the documentation link.
If you could, Kashita, and then I can share with everyone, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Okay,
have a
thank
question
you.
from Debabrat. Can we unmute them, please?
Hi, Sam. Hi. I have a question, which is, let's say we have a dashboard and that displays incident data. Probably the data has more than 10,000 or 20,000 data at once. So is there a limit that we can show only the 10,000 data, 1,000 data at first, and then we have a next feature, so that like the same we have in the mid tier. So when we display the data, it shows 1,000. So we have
Okay.
limited that.
Yeah, I can take this. I hope we are visualizing this data in table only, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have the pagination feature available in the table visualization, and
Right.
that can be used. So you can set it to 1000, and based on that, the pages will be created.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. George has asked another question. Can we schedule email with report of the incident and change request?
Yes, of course you can, George, but can you elaborate on your questions? Can we unmute George, please? Not sure I understood the question correctly. Yes, of course, we can schedule emails with reports of incidents and change requests.
George, do you want to unmute yourself? Can you hear us? Hello. I'm not sure, Nikhil, if he has audio. Sometimes when people join,
Yeah.
it doesn't connect. Maybe we can take this one offline if you can't. George, no, we can't hear you. Do you want to type back a bit more detail for Nikhil, and we'll come back to your question why Nabil has raised his hand? Sorry, we can't hear you. Nabil, do you want to come off mute?
Yes, I'm just following up on the number of record that we can export. At the moment, we do have a cap of 250,000 record, but you mentioned that we can export in bulk, so can we reach, like, for example, 1 million record in batches?
No, I mean, why would you require 1 million records in batches? Who analyzes 1 million records in any report?
If we want to do data analysis on the duplicate and orphan CI as an example, because we do have that.
You'll need to add additional conditions and make sure that your result set is small enough. Sometimes you may have to split it into multiple classes. So if it's a CMDB report, which I'm guessing you're referring to, it would help to split it across some analytical dimension. It could be a CI class or something else, because allowing large data sets has an adverse impact on performance.
So what's
Nabil,
the maximum number that we can reach?
You're already at that limit. In fact, you're above the limit that we usually recommend.
Okay. So the workaround that we can, like, extract in bulk, we are at limit with 250,000 record.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
okay.
Yes, Rob has a
Rob,
question.
yes.
Is there a way to build a dashboard to show all the reports for dashboard, specifically tracking all email addresses for user access review purposes? Rob, you may want to look at the usage dashboards that we have released recently. There are updates in the 25.1 version as well. I assume your question is about measuring the adoption of dashboards, finding out which dashboards are used the most, which users are accessing those dashboards. If that's the question, yes.
That will be useful, yes. It's more specifically around, we have a lot of people who are using dashboards to generate scheduled reports out of the system for incident and change data and things like that. And a lot of those are, of course, basically just going to email addresses. Now, because that email address is effectively just an email address in a two field, comma separated, or I think it's, comma separated list, there's no real user access control over it. So what I was actually looking for is there an easy dashboard for effectively those scheduled reports, where I can see all of the email addresses that are in play in the system, and I can quickly identify and clean up inappropriate addresses or addresses that should no longer be in these lists. I guess it was more around a dashboard for that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it'll be an internal form or something like that I need to be looking at, but I couldn't find something to do it offhand.
So you're looking something like a schedule log for all the active schedules you want to know.
Yeah,
Who are
a
the
dashboard of the
recipients
schedule
of those
reports and
dashboard schedules? Okay.
exactly. And I'm sure there's like an internal form, but I don't want to have to hassle my support teams to get that information. I'd like to have a dashboard that I can hand off to our security and auditing people who are in charge of the kind of the compliance of this stuff, and they can just have a dashboard that they can go, yep, everything looks good, and they're happy with that, rather than chasing people to actually extract that from the system.
No, I'm not sure if we have those details yet. We'll need to check.
Another feature request. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got another question from Debabra. I can see Kashita, you're answering that question. Do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So I'll share the screenshot with Devabrat. He can use BMC table and enable pagination, and with that, it can be done.
Okay, I'm just making a note of that, and you'll share that. We can send that out in the Q&A. Okay, and Nabil's got another question. Nikhil, I can see you're responding to it for
I'm
exporting.
responding.
Okay. Okay, that's all our questions. Does anybody else want to raise their hand? We've got a few more minutes left.
But I just want to confirm in regard of the 250,000 records. If we want to extract more data, do we need to look at other approaches like APIs or that, or this is like the limit of the dashboard? So we need to look at other solutions, or this is the limit of the dashboard? This is what I want to understand.
Yes, you may explore other options such as APIs.
But the is 250,000, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.